All right. Well, thanks for checking in with another episode of Triple Play. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't forget to support. Also, don't forget to support those that support us, and that means Andy McCollum and Resource One with all your financial advisor type needs. 636-458-1798. His team is great. Can't recommend them enough. I personally use them. Also, CS Design, who does our intro and outro at 573-436-3717. And lastly, we got Jeff Earhart Agency for your State Farm insurance needs at 314-821-5333. We also just want to mention, don't forget about Brookes Bible Institute. If you're somebody looking, layperson, want to get a little bit deeper in God's Word, have a better understanding in the Midwest area, Brookes Bible Institute is a great place to check out. They're accredited. You're a student, you want to get a ministry degree, not necessarily want to carry a lot of college debt. You can get out of there very cheaply and be able to go do a smaller church. The average church size is about 75 people in America. If you're coming out of seminary with, or college with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of debt, that's hard to maintain and pastor a church of 75 to 100 people. But if you go to Brookes, you'll get a great education. Can't say that enough. And it'll be affordable. You won't come out layered with all this debt on your back where you can't pastor a small church or wherever God may lead you, maybe missions too. So wherever God is calling you to be, we want you to be able to get there. They offer both pastoral type degrees and counseling degrees. Again, Brookes Bible Institute will have their link in our episode. So if you look at the show notes, you'll be able to find it. So that said, today, you'll notice that my co-host is gone. He's a little under the weather, so he says, just joking. But all that said, we've got a great guy here today. We're excited to have him. It's actually somebody I've been looking forward to for a while. My wife saw him when he was first running in our area and told me all about him, and she was like, even more thrilled later on when she found out that you were at the stairs praying with Sean Foyt. That we love the fact that when we have biblical, solid people in government office, that's an answer to my prayer. That's one of the things I pray for almost every night, is that God would raise up godly leaders to help run our country each and every day. So with that being said, we got Representative Justin Sparks of the Missouri House here today, but you've got a lot in your past. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. Prior to getting involved in legislature, you were a St. Louis County police officer for 15 years. You also served as a supervisor for the Special Response Unit and an operator of the Tactical Operations SWAT. So additionally, you were also a deputized United States Marshal in the Eastern District of Missouri and supervised and participated in high-risk fugitive apprehension operations. So that's a lot. Yeah. All that to say that you're well equipped, you're a great police officer, and you love serving people and protecting people, which makes you a great House of Representative candidate for not just candidate, but anybody in office, public office, somebody who serves with their life, somebody who loves the Lord deeply. I think those are some great qualifications, friend.
It's funny you say that, brother, because you read that off. You have to do a biography. I hate doing that stuff.
That's okay. I just want people to know a little bit about you. I know there's a lot more in there,
but no, I break it down like I was a policeman. And I was in SWAT, Special Operations, for the majority of my career. And then I was blessed enough to become a supervisor on a deputized U.S. Marshal on the task force, right? In Eastern District of Missouri. So, and that's exactly what we did. Your worst of your worst criminals, we would go hunt them down, find them, and apprehend them in as non-violent way as we possibly could. We had to say that because it didn't always work out that way. People,
not by your choice.
People choose their own destiny. They make their own decision. But I can honestly tell you, worked with some of the most amazing people, most amazing policemen I've ever worked with, and I was blessed to do it. But when you say that makes you qualified or a good candidate to be in the House of Representatives, well, you would think so. But I think we'll talk a little bit about today why when I went down to Jefferson City, I felt extremely out of place.
I would actually believe that. I would believe that just because I know a little bit about it. I don't know if you know this, but I actually was the treasurer for Kirk Matthews, who was our House representative at one point. and another awesome godly guy. And every now and then he would give me a little bit of backstory of what would be going on from the political point of view of Jeff City. And I mean, it's basically a microcosm of the federal government in a lot of ways. I mean, you got special interest. I mean, we had, do you know Jody Grace? Jody,
Yes.
yeah, we had her on just a few weeks ago and we were chatting a little bit about that.
Okay, so she prepped you well for our conversation today.
Well, there you go. Well, tell us a little bit about you. We got your bio, but where'd you grow up? A little bit about where the St. Louis question, where you went to high school, and also tell us a little bit about how you came to know Christ. Your testimony.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing we could talk about today. And when we talk about what's going on in the world, I hope that our conversation today will be inspiring, but I hope that it reaches some people's hearts that will hear it, because there's nothing more important than answering the call of God in your life right now. Whether that means you have any type of relationship with him or not, I hope by the end of our conversation, something gets triggered in you, because there is literally nothing more important than the Lord calling you to a relationship with him through his son, Jesus. And we're going to talk about how that directly has guided my life.
Awesome.
And why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because I will tell you, nothing could be more weird than why I'm sitting right here. We're having this conversation. It's kind of out of the body experience, but we'll get there. Where did I grow up? Well, my grandfather was stationed at the Army base in Granite City, Illinois.
Okay.
After the war, he worked there, worked for the government, and my father was a policeman in Granite City. So back then you had to literally live in the city where you were a police officer. Residency requirements was a big thing back then. And so that's where we lived. I went to Granite City High School right across the river, a little steel town. If anybody, all of you guys out there from Granite City, probably not very many, but a little bit of a rougher town, very blue collar. Everybody worked at the mill at some point in your life. And I worked around the mill as a contract agency for one summer, long enough to know that I was going to get out of Granite City as quickly as I possibly could. And not because of the awesome people there, because we have great families, great institutions. Granite City was a great place. But I knew that
wasn't your life.
I wasn't gonna work in the mill, right?
There you go.
And that's weird, because I'm not knocking anybody. It was hardest work, just dirty, hard work. And I respect these men, and they were men in the mill. And they would go and provide for their families and just work their butts off. But I had always, from when I was very little, believed and felt weirdly that I was called to something greater. I always thought that I was called to do something big. I know this sounds dumb. I know it, but I can't even explain it to you. That there was always something like, I'm supposed to do something. I had this very deep conviction from the age of 5 years old. I'm class of 2000, millennial, graduated in 2000. So I'm 5 years old, and the newspaper guy comes up to me and he says, what are you going to do when you grow up? And at 5 years old, I looked at him and I said, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to become a policeman.
That's awesome.
And funny, I did exactly that. Now, it's a funny story, because I grew up in Granite City. My dad's a police officer in Granite City. And I go to college, not very well, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And I tell Dad, I'm going to do police work, Dad, from when I was little. And he says, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean? And he said, you go try and you go do anything else other than police work. And if you try everything else and you still come back and want to do this, then you have to know that God is calling you to this. Because if you do this in your own strength and volition, you'll fail. You'll fail terribly. Not only will you fail in your own personal life and become just a dried up, decrepit person, like a lot of those that he worked with, but you'll do a disservice to your fellow man. You'll be a terrible police officer. And that's not what they need in their worst time, whether they've been victimized by a crime or somebody in their family's passed away. They need somebody there that's going to serve them, that's going to protect them. And they don't need somebody that's doing it just because it's a job. And I was like, gosh, Dad, you know what I mean?
Not what you're expecting, eh?
Sure, right. I was expecting, like, sign my application and get me hired. That's not who my dad was, though. So,
Is your dad a believer, by the way?
Oh, yes. Deep man of conviction and faith. And so I said, oh, okay, My dad was the type of dad that when I was 18, going to college, coming back home, he said, you can stay here in my house for while you're in school, and then you're gone. And and this is the generation of helicopter parents and failure to launch, And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, you can't live here anymore. And this is my room. He said, no, it's not. This is going to be the computer room. He said, I love you, buddy, but you'll never learn to become a man if I'm always the man. See, there's only one man of this house, and it's not you. And I said, it was a hard. He's a very loving man, but he just had to have some tough love and say, look, I can't teach you how to do this. I can guide you and give you everything, but you need to feel this of the weight of the world, because what you're called to do, and who knows what that is, you're going to need to develop this now, so you'll have the tools later. You need to feel the weight of the world, the responsibility, and you need to fail. So you can't do it here.
That's awesome.
So this feeling, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to find a place to live and pay bills. And, it's a little panicking, because everybody goes through this. If you're a man and you launch and you have your own family, you understand that feeling. You're like, man, my goodness, now I'm the guy. My family's going to rely on me. And I remember distinctly that feeling of growing up and when we go out somewhere, we go on vacation or we go out as a family unit, I remember distinctly being the person knowing that everybody in my family was looking to me to protect them. And it wasn't the other way around. I wasn't looking to anybody else to provide or protect because I'm the guy. So anyway, that's what it was. That
makes a lot of sense. Well, and I think prior to that to your generation, that was pretty much the expected thing. I mean, my dad would be like, hey, well, you're in college, you can stay here.
Sure.
When you're out, if you need a little time to get a place, build a little nest egg, you're welcome, but you're going to pay rent, or you're going to, or do chores around the house. It's not going to be like the little, you're going to, and so my mom and dad bought a 5-acre place. And the minute I realized when he said, part of my rent would be mowing 5 acres, I was like, I'm out, man. If I'm going to mow 5 acres, it's going to be my own house.
It's going to be my 5 acres. That's right. It's all part of the process. And thank God for our dads, man. Thank God we had good dads, right? So yeah, that's where it was. I launched out, went to Oral Roberts University for a year. We both decided, Oral Roberts University staff and myself, we both decided that I had done enough damage to their university that I wouldn't return. Nothing that would get you in prison, but I was just an absolute disaster. First time away from home as a Christian kid. We talk about our relationship with the Lord. I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in a home that knew the truth, studied the word, went to church, and absolutely were believers. Just an absolute radical story. My mom, actually, while she was in nursing school, dad was a policeman, mom's nursing school, the way they got together was wild because neither one of them were saved. They were both married. He had children. They had an affair together. That's how they got together. They were all friends of a group. They cheat on their spouses. I'm given that this is all part of their testimony, by the way.
Yeah.
And they get radically saved. My mom works in an abortion clinic in Granite City, Hope Clinic. We call it the Hopeless Clinic because there is no hope there. And she's working, helping the doctors perform abortions every day, watching these little babies be born, essentially aborted, and then flushed into the sewers of Granite City. It leads her to a place of such severe depression that she takes my dad's off-duty revolver. And if you know anything about firearms, there's one thing that revolvers don't do, and that's misfire. They never, ever. The revolvers are some of your most reliable firearms that you can ever fire because they have a revolving cylinder, right? Just a hammer hits the bullet, the chamber explodes, the projectile comes out. Extremely reliable. She takes his off-duty revolver. She says she's going to kill herself one night, puts the gun to her head, pulls the trigger. What happens? It doesn't go off. It doesn't. It fails to fire.
Wow.
She puts the gun down. She can't even believe she can't even kill herself, right? She actually has that moment. So mom gets a hold of my dad's mother, my grandmother. She gets radically saved, becomes a Christian that night. This whole legacy is how I get here today, right? This is who I am. And she's still working at the abortion clinic, and now her eyes are opened spiritually. So when we're talking about the most important thing is Jesus in our life, the difference between knowing Jesus and having like a legit relationship with a creator of the universe is the difference between having wisdom and truth and the veil being removed from your eyes, because that's what happened to her, and that's what happened to me. So she gets radically saved. My dad gets saved in the seat of his police car reading John 3:16, right? Where he
Awesome.
For God so loved, he inserts his own name into the scripture as he reads it. Mike, that God sent his only son so that Mike might live and not die. So this couple who had gotten together and married and divorced through sin becomes radically saved and renewed. And then they have me, right? And so my sisters and I'm one of four sisters, and I'm the only boy. And I grow up in that environment, that past and that environment. And so to say I had a background in the Lord is absolutely the truth. It's absolutely the truth. But it didn't become real to me until I was 16. 16 years old, sitting in church, knowing the truth, knowing what the Lord was, a relationship, but knowing that there was something not legitimate in me. I knew I was a fraud. And that's something I've struggled with for a long time, is that the desire to be authentic, the desire to be real, to not put on a facade, to not put on a face, to not project something to the world that you want the world to see, but to let the world see you for what you really are, Christ in me. And at 16, that became real to me, and I raised my hand and became a Christian for all the world to see.
There you go. That's awesome.
And so that's where I'm at now, right? Flash forward.
No, but I mean, obviously, understanding that, you just said it's the most important thing, and it takes, removes the veil, but it also is the filter now that you make all decisions through, right? I mean, your spiritual paradigm, whether it be your job, everybody says, you can't have, you got to remove, the Bible from school. You got to remove Jesus from this, from that. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that, because Jesus is part of everything I do. Every decision I make, my moral compass is always pointed towards Christ. And when the world tries to pull it, a different way, I've got to look at the filter of truth, God's word, and say, okay, well, this is what truth says. So I'm going to be, I know that if I just plan it this way, then I can probably skirt this situation and make my life a little easier. But if I do that, I'm honoring my Father.
You got it.
Or I can just address it head on, and whether it be a work problem, a family problem, whatever it is. I mean, I'm a jerk at home sometimes.
Oh, me too.
And you have to fess up to it and be like,
Yes.
I'm sorry, hon. I came home with stuff on my plate that I took into our relationship, and I did not turn that over to the Lord, and I apologize. I should have left it at the cross and met you and been a servant husband to you, and I apologize. So,
you and I talking about this right now, there's nothing more important, because where two or more are gathered, the scripture says that there will he be, right?
Sure.
So he's here with us. And for those, my unsaved friends at work, my policeman buddies, my SWAT buddies that I grew up with and became policemen with and served with and risked our lives together and went through tragedy together, some of which we'll talk about. It's the one thing that I want them to have. It's the one thing I want everyone to have. This what we're sharing is two redeemed from the pit of hell people. We are sin. And to tell people, like, if you're listening to me and what I'm saying, and I sound like I've got it all figured out, we do not have it all figured out. I mess up so much. I'm chief among sinners. I really am.
Yeah.
And the more that I love the Lord, and the more that I progress in my relationship with Him, the more I realize my need for Him.
Absolutely.
And I think Paul says the same thing in the scriptures, right? He's the chief apostle, and yet he calls himself the chief among sinners. But I really do feel that way. But what we're sharing right now is what I wish that everybody could have. And that's really our heart's cry, isn't it?
Absolutely.
In these days that we're living in.
And when you're talking about your fellow officers, I often think of, I'll insert a little bit of a testimony here, but my father-in-law, we were talking earlier, #1 prosecuting attorney for St. Louis City, did all these heinous crimes. And I'm sure it led to part of the reason he divorced his wife.
Yeah.
Like drank heavily.
Yep.
Came from a very kind of I don't want to say completely dysfunctional childhood. He had great siblings, but his dad was gone from an early age. I think he passed away. Mom had all sorts of issues and eventually passed away, and so he kind of played father to his younger siblings. All that said, when I met him, great guy, I loved him. He was going to be my father-in-law, but he was known as hard as nails.
Yeah.
Right. Like he was kind of this callous guy, very stern, very and you could tell with all these crimes that he carried a lot of that emotional baggage. And when he came to know Christ a few years before he passed away, just the continence and the joy that flipped on in his life in those last years.
Remarkable.
Absolutely. It was almost it really was a different person. And, because no longer was he having to carry the weight around. No longer was he, it seemed like tripping in whatever guilt maybe it was, or maybe whatever horrific things. I mean, he saw things because he'd be at these crime scenes and he'd see, I've had to take care of a lot of his old case study stuff. And I'd look at these things and I'd just kind of glance and I'd be like, oh my gosh. this is the stuff that books and movies and things, they're the worst of the worst.
Yes.
So anyways, he, all that to say that, if you come to know Christ, we can't say your life gets better in the sense of, you're still gonna have the same problems. Right. You're still gonna wake up the next day.
Right.
But now you've got a place to bring those problems, to lay them at the cross and say, hey, I can't handle this. This is too much for a person to carry. And you're absolutely right. It is too much for a person to carry.
Yes.
The Lord said, take my yoke. It's light.
That's it.
Mine's light. I'll take your burden. You take my yoke. It's the trade-off.
You're exactly right, and we're seeing that in our culture today. You're starting to see that. You start to see the country singer, the redheaded country singer Anthony. Did you see him?
Oh yeah, I like him.
Yeah, right. So he talks about, you're like, where did this guy come from? He sings about the Richmond, north of Richmond, and then you watch him on Joe Rogan, and he goes on Jordan Peterson. What's he talk about? The guy gets radically saved with a relationship with Christ 30 days ago.
Yeah, doesn't even know a whole lot of scripture.
Spanking new, right? But he knows, oh my goodness, the answer that I've been looking for through all my mental health issues, depression, suicidal tendencies, thoughts, right? It was there, and now I'm redeemed. And now it's pouring out of me. And you start to see this. You start to see it with Jordan Peterson. You start to see it all over the place. We're talking about authentic experiences.
And what I love, too, is he's still a little rough.
Yeah, yes.
When he talks, right. His language isn't exactly clean. It's not spiritual language. No.
It's not Sunday school.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, like, we'll have this podcast sometimes. People be like, well, that guy dropped a word. And I'll be like, yeah, but
no.
But you know what? Lost people do that. And new people who are saved don't always, there's convictions that as you grow with the Lord, that, that filter will start to center on, but you can't expect somebody who just came to know Christ to have the knowledge and the understanding and the wherewithal and all the other stuff that somebody maybe has been 30, 40, 50 years. And hopefully they've been walking truly with the Lord. And I say truly because there's a lot of people that have gone to church for 30, 40 years, but they're no worse, they're no better than a pagan.
Exactly.
They're truly really just lost. They're not, their salvation is in their head.
That's right.
So,
religious people that have no concept of the truth.
Right. Yes, where's their fruit? What have you done? This should bear fruit. No, there is none. You don't see fruit in their life, right?
Right.
So, and the Father says, "I'll prune you off and throw you into to the fire." So, that being said, there is it is, to me, I find it refreshing when people are real and they're like that, and they're not fine-tuned, It's kind of the appeal that Trump kind of had when he first ran, because he wasn't a politician.
Right.
He was, people could relate to him because he wasn't talking like the average politician. He wasn't saying things that, the average politician, whether you liked him or not.
That's right.
The one thing that you would say about him is, He wasn't a politician.
He's real.
Yeah, he is who he is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
he wears his eagle right on his sleeve and on his chest and everywhere else. You know, he has a hat that says "I'm an egomaniac." I mean, it's who he is. But also, people knew that. You know, it's probably the reason why Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he took over The Apprentice, it didn't last, because people wanted to hear that egomaniac say you're fired.
That's right.
You know, like that was culmination. So. All that said, I just wanted to kind of preface that, because if you're law enforcement, people listening in, realize you don't have to carry all those burdens by yourself.
You're not designed to.
No.
And you'll fail.
Exactly.
There's no way that you can do it.
And we're going to get into a little bit of that now. Let's kind of transition. So you're a police officer, and I guess I should ask how you met your wife too. That might be a good place.
That is a good place. So yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. She's going to laugh about that, because she's like, whenever you talk or do interviews, you know, you go off into, I always go off into rabbit trails, ADHD brain, times 1,000 here. But I always want to reiterate and emphasize just what an amazing human being she is, and my family, because they make up who you are. And Mandy and I met when she was 16, I was 17. We eventually got married with such a wild Bible miracle story anyway, and we now have 5 boys and 1 baby girl. So we have 6 kids. And
You're 6 like me. I've got 6. I got 4 girls, 2 boys.
Repopulate the earth with awesome God-believing people.
Exactly, man.
That's awesome.
I got 4 girls. You got 5 boys. You know, like.
That's great. Yeah. So it's been an amazing, absolutely incredible. I wish that apart from salvation, that everybody could have what I have. Everybody could have what you have.
Oh yeah.
Because there's nothing better.
I always get people.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's really funny to me because you're with 6, and you know this. Your life is different. First of all,
Yeah.
you know, you just can't do as much.
Right.
I mean, and people will be like, you know, I'm like, I can't afford to do it. I can't fly 8 people somewhere. That'd be like $5,000. I'm not making that kind of money.
Dinner's $200.
Yeah.
Whatever. Everything's more expensive.
But the things you do get, I'm like, but I don't miss any of that.
No.
I said, I don't miss any of that, because
No.
I said, you don't get to see the things that I get to see. I mean, most people are lucky to have 1 or 2 kids. They come, they go. I said, man, mine are, my life has been transformed for so long now. It's going to be weird the day that they're gone.
Absolutely.
Because I'm, and right now, this year, I'm entering a different phase, because I have one that just started college. And so now she's even that next step of freedom, you might say, a little bit. And so, you know, she's not at high school all day, you know, studying or whatever. She goes to college, and guess what? She sometimes stops by here.
Wow.
Hangs out with Dad.
That's awesome.
Just to say hi, and then it's, you know, she can get some free gas, or she can grab some grub, but I just find it very cool that, you know, that next relationship of being built with my daughter, and hopefully planting spiritual seeds in her. I find that so awesome, and I just can't imagine my life without any one of my kids, because they just add so much color, from college to, you know, helping coach my youngest son's soccer team, you know, at Upwards on a Saturday, and, you know, being able to talk to all those little guys, not only about soccer, but about faith. It's just awesome. I just love all of that. The relationship of each of my kids is so unique. They're all so unique. They all want to do different things. My second oldest, we run together.
That's cool.
My third oldest has gotten into guitar, so we've been playing together. You know, you just you find these things where each of your kids have that thing that you connect on, and you just have so much fun.
You do.
And you just build those great relationships, and I actually feel bad for those that don't have 6.
Me
or
too.
more. You
Me
know,
too.
like, I just go, man, you're missing out on so much joy and fun, and
And they're like, but isn't it more expensive? You're like, yeah. But isn't it more this? And yeah, all of it. Yes, guys.
my house is never clean.
No.
For like 2 seconds.
And no matter how, Mandy, my wife, no matter how many times she cleans it, no matter how many times, it gets dirty immediately. And here's the thing. I am fulfilled.
Oh yeah.
The fulfillment, you cannot be replaced or substituted in any capacity whatsoever. Not with as many vacations that you could take, trips, things, perks.
Even being out somewhere on time. Trying to get somewhere on time is the biggest.
Oh.
I had this conversation the other day, and I'm like, it is so hard, because I said, the minute you think you got everything planned out, everybody's I said, we'll go on a vacation, And I'll be like, yeah, we got to leave at 7:00. I'll have everything packed, everything. Then this one's got to go pee. This one's forgot to do that. And I said, it's just this trickle down effect. And I said, we have 4 bathrooms in a house, but 3 girls like to share just one. Yeah, and so because they got their stuff in there. And
right.
I said, it's just, it's just one of those things where you just gotta, and next thing you know, but I said, I've learned to adapt. I don't get upset anymore. Right. I just learned to.
That's right. It's because it's not going to change anything anyway. Why? We're late to absolutely everywhere we go, no matter what. Right. And I just don't care anymore. I mean, it's like, it's usually my fault. I've got so many people to get ready in that house. I have to get myself ready, and Mandy has to get everybody else ready. And so it's wild how she gets 6 people ready in the same thing. So get ready. She's always like, you don't understand. You just get yourself ready, but I have to get myself ready and everyone else ready.
But part of that probably is, if you're like me, it's because you're also twice as dirty because you've now been mowing the yard. You got to get, if you don't have time later on, so you got like this little 2-hour window on a Saturday to get as much of the house chores that on your end that have to be done that the kids can't do. And so you're doing this, you're doing that. And so you come in and you're like, I'm usually dirty head to toe. And I've had people say, well, why don't you just show up dirty? I said, I would be miserable the whole time because I'm usually hot, sweaty. I got dirt from head to toe. I've been out, trimming, mowing, whatever I need to do.
I've been being a man.
Exactly. You don't want that part of me. You want the cleaned up version of me. So, yep. And then this is funny. You'll love this. The other day we had an event and I was in the shower. And Amy had gone to see, I'd coached soccer, and then after soccer, I had done a bunch of chores around the house because I had a daughter who normally does some chores around the house, vacuuming, things like that. But she was running cross country. It was her sectional. So Amy was with them with a couple kids. So Amy's with the kid going to see the sectional. I'm with the kid. And then I come back and I'm helping all the other kids and I'm trying to get everybody ready, blah, 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 right? And then I'm ready to do me. And I hop in the shower. Well, in that time, Amy got home while I was upstairs getting ready, to take off. And I hop in the shower. And, of course, she's thinking she's got to get her chores done.
Right.
So what does she do? She starts the laundry. I'm in the shower, got stuff all over, because I'm bald, got stuff all over my head and my face. And I'm getting ready to go to the water, and there's no water. And I yell a little bit. I'm like, help, somebody help me. And I wait like literally about 5 minutes. Well, finally one of my sons comes in and goes, what's taking you so long, Dad? I said, can you tell your mom to turn the washing machine off for a minute so I can finish? And he comes down and another 2-3 minutes go by and I'm like, he got distracted.
Yeah.
One of his brothers, somebody grabbed, because he was my youngest. So, and eventually my wife comes up. It's now been 10 minutes. I've been sitting in the shower. I've got just this little trinkle kind of coming along my backside just to keep me warm enough so I'm not freezing, but not enough to really get anything off the face. Like I'm almost scared to do anything on the face because if you start getting it, all the soap will get in your eyes. Yes. And I'm with contact. That's a no-no. So I'm like, bearing down for 10 minutes like this, and finally she's like, oh, so she turns that off, and all of a sudden the water comes, and I'm like, but the stories that we have, right?
Every day. I mean, come on, like multiple times a week, something like that, right? Just something. And I wouldn't trade them for anything. Not for anything.
I just go with the flow now.
Yeah.
So and
it makes you a better person. It really does. Your character, perseverance, maturity, all of it. I look and it just makes you a better man. It really does. I think. I wish our culture could grasp onto that again. Really grab the importance of having children, large families, thriving families, because it's not just about the kids and the kids that you're going to raise, right, and in truth and righteousness and strength and honor, but it's also what they call you up to, what they require of you. They require perseverance. They require you to be a better man.
Absolutely.
They require you to be honorable, not cheat on your wife. They require us to go to another level of when you're sowing into. For me, it's my boys, my 5 boys. It's like, if I'm going to tell them not to look at pornography, then I better not look at pornography myself.
Exactly.
I better hold myself to the same standard and tell them why we do this, why it's important to resist it.
Well, and I think if we started thinking in those terms more, we would see a lot less problems. Like, at the gym, Sure, there's young gals that come by, but the minute I see them, you know what I'm thinking?
I know.
That could be one of my daughters.
I know.
I mean, I've got daughters that are age, you know, and I'm thinking,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want my daughters dressed like that. I wouldn't want men gawking like that. You know, like you just
kidding. It's like, and now
you don't think about it from a sexual point of view. I actually think about it from the opposite. Like
know.
I'm almost feeling sorry for their parents and for them for having to feel the need to be that way to get that attention.
and they're and what they dress now. It's not even like they're just dressed in workout clothes. It's ridiculous some of the stuff that the gals are wearing, and it's funny because you can see that the guys that are just there for that reason.
Oh, yeah.
Not even there for any other reason other than to look at the girls. And then you see the guys like what I do. A gal's going to come. I'm going to look at the trusses in the ceiling today, you know, or I'm going to look over at the opposite side of the gym. There's nothing over there, but I know that what's not over there is some gal in ridiculous clothes. It's going to be distracting in front of me. That's not why we're at the gym anyway. It's not why you should be at the gym.
Absolutely. You should be there to work out. And I actually have found it to be a great place to talk about Christ, to build great relationships,
Absolutely.
Talk about manly things, sports and outdoors and all those kind of things. I got my gun guys, got my sports guys. So, so it's all good. And got a couple guys from the gym who have been joining me at church. So, you just, it's a great place for that. And one of my secrets, I'm not big on cardio, so I bring an iPad and put it in.
Obviously, I'm not either.
I bring an iPad and I put it up on there, and I usually that's when I watch my cop shows because as a dad, those manly shows can't really watch them at home with especially with 4 girls. You know, if we're home, they want to watch the romance and all right, so they're not interested in dad's.
No.
Bang, bang, bang. They don't want to see SEAL Team 6. No. They don't want to see, any of my, and those are my favorite. Like the unit, you can go down pretty much, like 24, anything that deals with a cop or whatever. Yeah. I've been watching a series called Bosch.
Yeah.
So I'm anything dealing with detectives or, SEAL teams. I love those. I'm a fan, even more than superhero movies. I know a lot of people, I love Batman's, but most superhero movies, given a choice, I'd probably choose a good cop.
Sure. Yeah.
Crime.
Who done it?
Yeah. Now, the more realistic it is, the better I like, because I think the older you get, you start to especially in your own wisdom. I mean, I'm sure you are as a cop, you start to realize they're like, they're not even holding the gun right.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot shoot like that and hit those kind of people. That ain't right. They're moving that fast, and you're not going to get. Nobody's that accurate. I don't care how you could be Chris Kyle and you're not that accurate.
No.
So
exactly. Yeah, it ruins it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, you start to realize but then you really appreciate the ones
that are real. That
are so
accurate.
real. Yeah, I really, really, really appreciate those. That new one with Chris Pratt, I really, really like. The whole book series is good. But
see, I didn't read the books, but the show was phenomenal. Yeah, it hit home.
You need to go read the books.
That's what I was told. Like the books are so much better.
And then listen, if you like podcasts, the author does a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He has some pretty cool, like the whole Israel thing going on. He's got some inside soldiers who are actually over there right now that he's been interviewing on his podcast. Great. He's really, really cool.
Cool.
So I like his writing. I like him for the most part, and I really enjoy the Chris Pratt. And it's fun. They're I guess there's gonna be a spinoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the guy who plays his friend in that
yes,
in the first season.
Yes.
Everybody fell in love with him.
Yes. With
Taylor, I can't think of his name, Taylor, whatever it is. And so I always think of him from Friday Night Lights.
Right.
So. But everybody kind of fell in love with him. So they're actually, even though it's not, he's rewriting some books to go with that character to kind of expand on his background.
Cool.
And so they're going to do that. And then, of course, they're going to do the next couple of books. I think he just...
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, man. I tell people it's like Jack Ryan on steroids, man. You get the thrills of Jack Ryan, but you get a lot more...
depth.
Well, not just depth. I mean, the violence in it. I mean... Come on! When you saw what he did with that axe, that dude, you're in your mind, you're thinking the only other time I've seen something this violent like this has been The Patriot when Mel Gibson lost it.
Yep.
When the dude killed the son. Yeah, I mean it's an intense scene.
Yep.
But and the same thing. Both of them had family. He saw his son die, and the other guy, Chris Pratt, was his wife, right? Wife and daughter, and the daughter was the key. I think watching how.
Yep.
The wife was killed in blocking the daughter. So this guy intentionally shot his daughter that way. That was intense. So, book was intense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So all that said, we got to get into, we could talk all day. We love it.
I know.
We'll get you back here. We'll get more, we'll talk all sorts of good stuff, but, let's get into a little bit about, your law. So you met your wife, you get married, you have kids, you get into the law, you wind up coming over to where were you serving locally here?
Yeah. So I St. Louis County Police. I always looked up to the St. Louis County Police Department. They really were a premier agency in the region. And so I applied to St. Louis County Police and I applied to St. Louis City Police and went with the first one that hired me. So St. Louis County Police hired me first, put me through the academy, paid me, and offered me a job. So that's what happened. I started.
What area were you serving initially?
So I started in the 7th Precinct, which was like Highway 44, Fenton, Valley Park area, kind of out there.
Yeah, not too far from here.
Yeah, not too far away. Actually, this is actually part of the 7th Precinct where we're at right now. And so that's where I started. I didn't choose to come out here, but that's where the Lord guided my path. And it's funny, you do a lot of different things in your life. And again, like my dad had told me, go ahead and try everything else first. And I did. People said, "Oh, you'd be great in sales. You should do medical sales, make a lot of money and you have a great personality for it because you can talk to people." And the thing is, even though I'm extroverted, when like an outgoing person, I could talk to you and make a connection. I'm really introverted as a personality type. It's really strange. I don't like large crowds. I certainly don't like that. It's very uncomfortable for me. But I was terrible at sales. That's long story short. Horrible at sales, because I learned very quickly that if I didn't believe in something, meaning if I wasn't motivated in my passionate in my spirit about something, I just wouldn't do it. So it's hard to be passionate about like a copy machine or, a drug that you're trying to sell for pharmaceutical sales when you have to make this sale and make money off of, even though it may not benefit that person. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And not all salesmen do that. Not all salespeople are about that, but some are. And where I was working, that's what they wanted. It doesn't matter if it's really going to benefit you or not. You have to sell this,
Sure.
And I just thought, my gosh, what's the point? For me, that didn't motivate me. Now the Lord calls many people to many different things. You have to find where you're supposed to be. What is your destiny? What is your calling? And so that's how I learned that wasn't mine. And thankfully, there are business-minded, creative people that go into business because they're called to go into the marketplace. They're called to do that. They're literally gifted for that. And that wasn't me. So when I got hired into the police world, I got hired as a police officer. I knew I was where I was called to be. The calling at that time was fulfilled because everything opened. All the doors opened. Everything was easy. It wasn't like going to work. It was like I can't believe I get paid to do this. I can't believe they pay me to do this. I would do this for free, because when you're doing something that you're called to do like that, boy, it's not work. And that was the first time I ever experienced that in my life. Was, wow, I am being obedient to what I feel the Lord calling me to do, telling me to do, and opening the doors for me to do. And I mean all of the negative. There was the Lord, when he calls you to something, this is going to factor into what I'm doing now. He gives you what you need. He provides what you need. He'll protect you. He will pour his spirit out on you. He will give you strength that you didn't know you had. You'll be effective in a way that you didn't even know you were capable of. And that's what happened in the police world. I was able to do things I never even thought I would be able to do, and see things and experience things that were horrific and horrible, but to be a light in a dark world, to be an answer where there were no answers, and peace where there was no peace. And the Lord used that, and I immersed myself into a toxic environment where most people go and start drinking a lot. Mm-hmm. Police work in general is a drinking culture anyway.
Oh yeah.
Military is the same way, very similar, because it's a self-medicating.
Well, you're seeing the worst of a lot of things, and so if you don't have a place to leave that, as we were talking earlier, nobody's meant to be able to handle all that.
That's right. And so a lot of times I don't understand how guys did it without knowing the Lord. I knew the Lord, but you could see how many of them would deal with mental health issues and then spiritual health issues and go down that road of dependency on alcohol, and then even worse sometimes. And because you're immersing yourself into that toxic environment that I talked about, that's unlike anything. I don't even know how to describe it. You see the abuse of children. You see things that you just can't unsee. I can still, and I know all the police officers out there are going to understand this, and are my military guys. I can close my eyes and I can see all the bodies. I can see their faces. I can see what happened to them. I can see it. They never leave you. And yet, with the Spirit of the Lord with me and a relationship with Christ, I have this peace. It doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't bother me like it could bother me. Like, I carry that with me. I will always carry some of that with me, but it doesn't have that toxic, degrading, acidic effect on my soul. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I joined the police department, and I knew very quickly from the very first day that my dream and my goal was going to be to join SWAT. And in our police department, it was called Tactical Operations, and it's a full-time SWAT team for all of St. Louis County and adjoining areas. And so that's what I worked for 3 years, day and night. Talk about discipline, getting up early in the morning, working out, going to work, working out, training your mind, your body, and your spirit. And that's something that I learned from Oral Roberts University for the very brief time I was there.
That's hilarious.
Havoc at that university, but I did some of the things that I learned there actually stayed with me. Mind, body, and spirit, working on my mind, body, and spirit. And so 3 years in, as soon as I was eligible to go through the selection process, I did, and I was blessed to be able to join Tactical Operations.
That's awesome. And then what happens after that? Because I know that down the road, there's going to be a lot of different things that kind of occur, right? I mean, you're now part of Tactical, so you do that for how many years were you part of that?
So I was there for 6 years.
Okay.
And in that time, 3 years in, boy, I'm trying to get my dates right. I was still a new operator when 2014 happened and Michael Brown was killed. And the city of Ferguson doesn't have their own SWAT team, so they immediately called for us as their support to come in and handle the problem for them. And so I have a little bit of a unique perspective on how that all went down and what happened. But when I say that it was a defining moment in my life and career, certainly, but it was a defining moment in my life in that I experienced and witnessed something that I believe our country is going to witness and experience again, only on a mass scale. And so Michael Brown was killed. We immediately asked, was it a justified shooting? And in the police world, you say, was it a good shoot? Yeah. A good shoot would mean it's justified. Detectives whom we knew immediately called us back and said, it's a justified shooting all day long. It's all the evidence that the initial scene, the initial evidence that we know, all the witnesses that we've talked to. This is a no-brainer. And we said, oh, okay, great. We'd already been called out that morning, a call out for an armed barricaded suicidal subject. And so they said some things were going on in Ferguson and we were going to be needed. We're going to be called up there. And we were like, what? What do you mean? And they said, well, there was an officer involved shooting. And we said, okay, but it wasn't a justified shoot. It was a good shooting. And they said, yeah, it was a good shooting. And they're like, then why are people upset? And we're like, I don't know, but they're calling us up there. And so when we arrived, it was still the afternoon and people were just in the middle of the intersections kind of yelling and ranting and raving. And back then, we just jumped out of our police cars and said, get the heck out of the street. What's wrong with you? Yeah. What the heck are you doing in the street? You're impeding the flow of traffic. You're going to get ran over or hurt. You're going to get some of these kids that are running around here hurt. What's wrong with you? Get out. Get out of the street right now and get on the sidewalk. And they did. Everybody just calmed down real quickly, got back on the sidewalk. We said, hey, guys, I don't know what you think is going on here, but we don't get in the middle of the street. We don't do this. And we got in our police cars and we drove away. Thought nothing of it. We literally thought nothing of it because that was police work before 2014, before Ferguson. What are you in the street for? For what? Get out of the street. This is unsafe. You're impeding the flow of traffic. Little did we know, we had no idea that a lie had been planted. A seed had been planted. Hands up, don't shoot. And not only was it the seed of something that was going to grow over the next course of days and years, but that it was going to have a viral impact. It was going to grow uncontrollably. And it is my own opinion that there was a distinct spiritual ramification with this. It was almost a demonic seed that had been planted, and it was watered, fertilized, and it grew. And by that night, we knew that we were in big trouble, because people were not acting the way that you would typically act. They were certainly not acting reasonably or logically. And so we knew something bigger was happening. And by the very first evening, when the Ferguson assistant police chief came to us up in Buzz Westfall Center, and we were there as a SWAT team had all met up there, he said, we could hear the crowd from over a mile away. We could hear it. And we had no idea what was going on over what. Like, we still couldn't grasp in our brain why people would be doing this for a justified shoot, for a bad guy that attacked a police officer and unfortunately had to be shot and killed. It's sad and it's tragic. And there's all these different paths to why we got here. But it doesn't change the fact that of the facts of the case and what happened. So we couldn't understand, like, there has to be something more.
Right.
Well, there was. And that I remember that police officer telling us from Ferguson, telling us, guys, there are no more police. We have given them everything. We've given them the entire street. We've given them West Florissant Avenue, and there are no more police down there. And I remember our commander, very matter-of-factly, looking at us. There was 16 of us there. Our SWAT team was 16. We had another guy who was injured, so we had 16 people, 16 tactical officers. And he just simply looked at us and said, go take it back. That's it. I mean, very simply, go take that back, because this is the law.
Right.
This is righteousness, truth, and we're not going to allow lawlessness to expand and blow up. So we drove down there, got out of our police cars, stood in a line across West Florissant, and we watched 500 to 1,000 people at least with drugs, alcohol, boom boxes, F the police was being blared. There was a very distinct emotive, spiritual aspect to what they were doing. They were getting themselves in that frame of mind to attack. And I had never seen anything like this, like in the movie Braveheart. And that's exactly what I thought that night. They turned as one, not as individuals. They turned as one, focused all of their rage at us, and ran at us, charged us as if they were charging the line in Braveheart, like a battle, with their fists screaming at the top of their lungs. Now, this is before anything with Ferguson and any type of organized protest, nothing. This is just raw. And they're running at the police. And I mean running headlong. They're hundreds of yards away from us now. And we're just lined up, 16 officers, shoulder to shoulder. And I'll never forget the officer next to me and the officer on my right and my left, and we looked at each other, and I said, guys, I'm going to, if they breach this line, our police cars with all of our tools are behind us. Then these are special tools that cannot, these are machine guns, these cannot fall into the hands.
Yeah, you can't have these getting into everyday people.
Exactly. Especially with a crowd that has clearly lost their mind. And now what are we going to do about this? So I said, I am going to, and I was dead serious. We all were. I'm going to hit the first guy that attacks us as hard as I can, and then we're gonna have to start shooting. And we were dead serious. I mean, when I say dead serious, I had no question in my mind what I was going to do in order to keep this crowd from killing the rest of us and getting to these police cars and the tools that we had. And it was remarkable. They stopped about 12 feet from us, as if an invisible wall, like physically I saw them almost run into it. When I say like physically, their bodies stopped moving forward and they almost lost their balance and fell backwards. They ran into an invisible force. I cannot tell you anything other than it was God.
Yeah.
It was God. And they stopped right in front of us. And I'm thinking and they're screaming and they're telling us what they want to do, but they can't do it. And we're just standing there holding our bearing. And we're in a standoff, like a Mexican standoff now. There's only 16 of us that could have easily overwhelmed us, easily. And in fact, even if we would have opened fire, they would have overwhelmed us. It was that. Like, there's not enough bullets for what you've got to deal with here. And so we just got in this moment where we're there and they're there, they're screaming, they want to do this, and we're just standing there holding back this line, this invisible force between the two of us. And that's the way it was while this call for reinforcements went out everywhere. As far and as wide as anybody that could come, they were calling police officers everywhere. And I can tell you right now, we were getting on the horn to our commander saying, you need to get police officers up here as fast as you possibly can. And so it felt like 24 hours, but it was probably about an hour, 45 minutes maybe, of this standoff. And then this crowd, more police officers start to arrive, and this crowd melts back into the darkness. And that became the first night when everything started to burn down and be looted, and absolute anarchy. And anarchy like I've never seen before. And I tell this story not to get people afraid or not to get people in fear, because that's not what this is about. It's that when a spirit is removed, the law and order and what police officers do, we are simply, Romans 13, we are simply enforcing the law and order and the natural order of things that is given to us down by our Creator, God, in His commandments. And it is what all of our laws are based off of, right and wrong. And all we are is administering His justice. That's it. And we're doing so imperfectly, as imperfect human beings. You do the best you can. If you had a bad cop or somebody that does the wrong thing, you get rid of them, right? There's nothing that police officers hate worse than a dirty cop that's doing the wrong thing. And so we're doing the best you can to administer the Lord's justice, the concept of right and wrong. It's a spiritual concept. And for a time, it felt like the Spirit of the Lord was removed. That restraining spirit was removed. And there was absolute lawlessness and anarchy for a brief few hours. And watching that occur, watching just absolute chaos in which we had lost control, was something that will stay with me forever, because I've never been in an environment where the police were not in control, and we were not in control. And when we finally got relieved from that line, the crowd went off to burn Quick Trip, loot Walmart, break into homes and cars at random and will, so much so that we couldn't keep up with it. Gun battles, shooting, bullets everywhere. I mean, just absolute a miracle that people weren't being killed left and right. We regrouped back up at Buzz Westfall Center. And I just remember this image of everybody in the parking lot, all these officers, these 16 officers, tactical officers, they're all on their phones. And they were doing the same exact thing that I was doing. I was calling Mandy in the middle of the night, telling her, you get the kids out of the bed right now, and you get to your parents' house right now. And I mean, don't hesitate. I can't tell you what's going on right now, but I can tell you right now, we are not in control. And if this continues to spread unabated, there is no stopping this. There's nothing that we can do to stop this. I mean, we're calling police from everywhere, because that's the nature of the society we live in. You have one police officer, roughly, for every 10,000 people. If you didn't know that, that's basically the ratio of where we live. One police officer for 10,000 people. When you get lawlessness like that, there's no stopping it. You're not going to stop it with guns. You can't stop it. It was much bigger than us. And the only way I can describe it is there was a wickedness and evil that was pervasive and out of control. And I know it wasn't just me, because we were all on the phone. We're all telling our families the same thing. Get out of bed and get to your parents' house right now. You tell them what's going on, and I'll be home when I'm home. And thank God that continued until the sun came up. The sun started to come up, and for that brief moment in time in which there was no control and absolute chaos, it abated.
Amazing what happens at a night, isn't it?
Yes.
The light comes.
Yes. And that literally was the night that began 3 straight weeks of our response to Ferguson. And by the way, what that night was different than all the other nights that followed. Then you had like legitimate people who honestly thought that there was a hands up, don't shoot moment. Churches that had come down, they truly thought that African Americans were being targeted and that this person had been shot down in the street, shot in the back. I mean, this lie that had been planted that night grew out of control. Even till today, there's still people that don't know the real truth of the results of that investigation. And so,
not just one investigation, right. 1, 2, 3. I think there's been at least 4 major investigations, 2 federal, 2 local. Everybody has come to the same conclusion. If they could go after and do something, they would, without a doubt. I mean, we had a special prosecutor in St. Louis County get elected just for that, and after reviewing it in his first year, there's nothing.
I know.
It was from forensic to from beginning to end. There's nothing there. It's as squeaky clean as it gets, because it was an unfortunate situation that occurred, and the person that had control of that wasn't the officer. The person that could have controlled it that day was Michael Brown.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And what's tragic is that objective reality, truth, facts, even going back to 2014, we saw how those things didn't matter anymore. You can have Don Lemon get on CNN and espouse absolute garbage.
But I think that's part of the society we're in today with social media, because things can get out before we've had the chance to actually investigate, do good investigation. When we saw that in just the past week with the hospital, right?
Yes.
Initial reports from Gaza, where this hospital was completely decimated, 500 people were killed. And within 24 hours, we knew the hospital wasn't hit. It was the parking lot behind it. It wasn't an Israeli rocket. It was a Hamas rocket that backfired. And there was less than 100 people, maybe as little as 30 or less, that either got injured or killed from it. So, way different story from beginning to end. But there are still people probably today, almost a week later, that will tell you that Israel bombed the hospital in 500 because they saw the initial clip and that it reacted. They got their emotions going. I think that's going to be one of those things that we have to teach people more than ever before, is to be patient before you make assumptions, because more and more, because things are a live time, we need to be careful about, getting all the facts, even if we think we saw it on a video. A great classic example of that, about 3 years ago, there was a police officer that shot a young man and in a parking lot, and the video from the people in the store looked like he killed an unarmed person. But the parking lot camera that came out several days later showed from a different angle, and in fact, the guy had a knife and was stabbing the police officer. You just couldn't see it behind the angle of that car, in the back of his leg. The cop actually received multiple stab wounds from a knife. When he was trying to get him down to arrest him, he grabbed the knife and started hitting the police officer. And that camera caught, because you couldn't see his mouth this way from this camera, but that camera caught his mouth clearly, and you could see him say, "Please drop it, please drop it. I don't want to shoot you. Please drop it. You've already stabbed me."
Yes.
I'm going to have to respond here in just a second, because I'm bleeding now. You've stabbed me twice.
Yep.
So
something you just said was really important, and you have to be, as a society, we're training our kids now, especially in the age of social media, and now we're about to enter into an environment of artificial intelligence. And when you really want to talk about a narrative, whether it's accurate or not, and being able to not believe what you see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears, you may not be actually getting real video. You might not be getting a real recording of something. It could be artificially by a computer created. A whole nother level of
it's happening. Yeah, it's happening right now. Joe Rogan talks about commercials that are out there where it has his image, his mouth, and it's on a product that he's never ever done anything with, never received the check from, doesn't know anything about.
But you have to have a populace that desires to know the truth. You have to have people that their ultimate goal is to know the truth. And you're not getting that right now. What you have increasingly on both sides, and when we're talking about like for example, political spectrum ideology, the left or the right, or you're talking about Hamas or Israel, there is no equivocation between those two things. So Hamas says Israel hits a hospital and people die, hundreds of people die, and the New York Times goes with that. You're gonna publish and take Hamas's word. The equivalent is the day after 9/11 taking Al Qaeda's word that it was pilot error flying into the
a great example.
You
Exactly.
understand? Like that's the equivalent here, and so, but that's the point, though, isn't it? The New York Times knew that what Hamas was saying probably wasn't that accurate. You don't think they knew? They knew. The New York Times, they're not stupid. So they're like, Hamas is telling us, well, probably, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. We're going to run with it. And we're going to run with it. We might even have to...
Because we can verify it.
Yeah, we might even have to take it back or issue a correction. It won't matter because the initial push will be enough to get thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world fired up. And that's what they wanted.
Oh, absolutely.
They wanted that tide to turn against Israel. They wanted that narrative and public opinion to turn against Israel. And so, put out the headline. So they put out the headline that Israel struck a hospital, even though...
Well, even their words during lifetime. Fiery, but mostly peaceful, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fiery. We got 5 buildings behind me burning down, total lawlessness, but it's mostly peaceful.
It's a mostly peaceful burning. It's a mostly peaceful fire.
The Target's gone. Walmart's probably gone. This community has lost every part of shopping, and they're not coming back. They're not going to rebuild. But hey, it's pretty peaceful down here now.
And we were talking about Ferguson, but that's where this all began. What we see today, was birthed in that original seed, in my opinion, in our little town in St. Louis. In St. Louis area, Ferguson, Missouri, is where we first saw that. And it was an indication of what's now coming, what is now here. It's what we see. And in me, in the position that I'm in now, leaving police work and being in the legislature, miraculously, I just am reminded every single day that what we're trying to do, passing laws, is inadequate to attempt to guide our society and address problems that can't be or not very well addressed by legislation. Meaning, all of our founding fathers, in one way or another, made statements like John Adams, which says our government of a constitutional republic, a representative democracy, will only work with a moral and just people. It is not adequate, nor is it appropriate for people that are not moral and just unto themselves, meaning relying on the Lord for guidance, for his divine truth and justification, right?
Right.
And ultimately, he's exactly right, because what we've seen is a moral degradation in our society, and now our system is not adequate to deal with it. And in the legislature, we're trying to pass laws. For heaven's sakes, we had to pass a law and fight for and advocate for a law that would keep minors from castrating themselves.
Yeah, transitioning.
Yes,
absolutely.
From cutting off pieces of their body and chemically sterilizing themselves forever. And we had to pass a law for that.
Because there's parents that would do that to their kids.
Of course. And in fact, we saw it happening.
Yeah, that I look at that as in the same thing of when I read through scripture of child sacrifice. You know, you think, what kind of society but between abortions, between the transitioning, we know what kind of people would do that, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I think part of the problem too, you know, you talked about Ferguson. I actually look back to when we started we said that God can't be in school. And I found that we can't pray in school. And so when you remove God and you move prayer, it's got to be filled by something, right? I mean,
Has to.
Thousands of years in human history, name a civilization that's been built that doesn't have some kind of religious belief of some sort. It will be filled with something. So humanism is what's filled it, right? You go down any school, hallway, and you'll see you can do it. You're empowered. Be what you want to be. Every slogan, everything they do is built around man-centered. Man is their own God. Man is their own, destinator. And so it's very me-centric. So are we surprised that 40 years later, 50 years later, after this being taught down through the generations, that we now have kids who are completely self-absorbed? I mean, there's no other way to put it. We've raised and parents who are self-absorbed, right?
What a great point, because you are made, and I can't take credit for this, and I can't remember. Maybe it's Peterson, maybe it's somebody else. You are made to worship. You and I are made to worship and of course, this is our worldview, right? Trying to talk to people with a different worldview, it's like with a diluted point of view, it's very difficult. But when you understand the worldview of a created being and a creator, we were created to worship. So if you're not worshiping the creator, you will worship yourself. You will worship and make an idol out of anything.
Right. And so when you remove like basic principles of the Ten Commandments or basic prayers, did you ever read the prayer that got prayer kicked out of school with the Supreme Court?
No.
It is like 3 lines. It was like, it was read on the intercom, and it was, God, we want to, it doesn't say Jesus, by the way. It said God. Say, God, we pray for our country, we pray for our administration, and we pray for our teachers. Amen. I think maybe students. Maybe it was teachers and administrators and students. Amen. It was 3 lines and an amen. And that's how radical our Supreme Court had come during that time, because of the progressivism in the early 1900s. And we were talking earlier about fatherlessness. That was a big contributor. You look at the Supreme Court justices that got elected during that time period. One of the things you'll notice is a lot of those who were super liberal came from fatherless homes because their dads died in the war.
Oh my!
And mom raised them.
My gosh!
And so you start to see this trend of fatherlessness. You see the Supreme Court making decisions. Prayer in school and prayer in life had actually gone to the Supreme Court, just like abortion had gone to the Supreme Court. Many issues had gone to the Supreme Court multiple times, and every time without any thought, really, it was shot down because it was easy to see that it violated basic humanity, basic thought process, and I find it interesting when people say separation of church and state. I just look at them and say, yeah, that's a very ignorant statement,
right?
Because that means you don't understand where even that statement came from.
That's exactly right. And most people don't. They don't
want to spend the time to educate themselves. They like a good, little slogan, and I'm going to throw that out there. You don't believe that the Bible should be taught in school? Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And you name every great society has been built off of one thing. You know what that one thing is? The Ten Commandments. Hinduism, Buddhism. You go down, you can go other religions. Most of them have some sort of version of the Ten Commandments. What our Constitution is based on, the Ten Commandments. What better moral compass to teach young people? I'm not saying they got to be preached to. That is what I'm saying.
Right.
But if you don't have a moral compass, where do we have anything in common? If everything you believe, if what you say is your right and what I say is my right, how do we can't coexist? And that's where we're at today, because
that's it.
You've got a society that's very divided because you've got people who live in their own reality, and you got people who live in a different reality, and they're not able to find a way to meet in the center, because that means one has to give up the reality.
And my gosh, you just exactly described what's going on. It's a difference of reality. It's not even living in the same universe, because whereas one perspective, one reality is that God gave us inalienable rights, right? Our rights are from Him as a creator. Our rights don't come from government. Me passing legislation is not what enables you to do something or not to do something. Your rights are inalienable. They're given to you at birth. It doesn't matter what you look like. Those are yours. You are free. You are a free man. And not because government says you're free. It's because God created you free. That's the reality you and I live in. I'm telling you right now, increasingly, legislators on the other side don't live in that reality. God is their government. Government has become their God, and they worship it.
Oh, yeah. Well, And then you've got the next piece of that, which is anytime you get things involved, government, whatever, and this is historical. You look at Babylon, you can go down to Persians, you can go to Rome, you can study any form of governmental history, and corruption. You know, one of my favorite Manly movies is 300.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but how does the beginning of the story start out? A very obvious thing that needs to be done to protect the people, right? The army needs to march down and face the Persians head on because they're coming in to wipe out who we are, okay? And one of the senators, we find out later in the film, has been paid off, right?
Right.
He was paid off to turn. He was an influential senator, and he turned the rest of these common senators against Unitas, right?
Right.
Okay. And this is loosely based off of truth, right? And we know some of this is truth, but it's also, regardless of how true it is, it's also the very essence of almost every political system and how it almost always goes corrupt is special interest. People start buying it. I mean, even now we can look at, what's going on in Ukraine. And maybe we're justified to be there or not. I'm not going to get into that part, but I will definitely say to think that there's no influence of the Ukrainians with our president, it would be absolutely
insane.
Insane. I don't care what political side you are. You can at least acknowledge that there are heavy ties there financially between the Biden family and what happened in Ukraine. So, without a doubt, we know that they're in to say like, well, that's not enough. What amount makes it enough? I mean, anytime you're receiving financial gains from another country and you're in politics or from a company, okay, Pfizer, how much have they given? I mean, you look at all these different companies and how much they give to these politicians.
Yeah.
And then all we need to do is spin that and take a local and you'll understand, maybe it's not on the grand scheme of billionaires always, okay, but there are local companies who are decent size who are writing checks to politicians, and they may write, they may 100% believe this bill is the right thing, but Bill came to him and said, that would really hurt our business, and that would hurt my ability to give to you and help you out, and I've been a good buddy to you. Come on. This isn't going to hurt a whole lot of people, or this isn't really going to do a whole lot anyways. You know that. So why are we going to pass it anyways? Why? Is there really a need for it? I mean, if we take away that ability, I know that it's really geared towards St. Louis and Kansas City, but I mean, down here in Springfield, that would really wreak havoc. And so, because that would take out our Ghetto Boys Club. Think about that. Right now, we have this influence down here, and if that influence leaves,
right,
that buddy, you may not be in office next time. Didn't you say you wanted to move up to a political career? Right. Didn't you say you wanted to go to a state legislator later?
Right.
We'd be happy to help you out with that, bud.
That's right.
And to think that financials don't impact people, and when we talked about sales the other day, one thing you'll find the more of a grifter salesman and desperate salesman is almost always motivated by lots of money, right? I mean,
right.
You talked about belief first, and then financial gains come out of it. You said I would be a police officer. I do mortgages as my full-time job, and I find fulfillment in that because I love helping people get into homes, create the dream. I love seeing a family that maybe grew up, whether it be the hood. We do a lot of North County homes, but people that grew up in areas and a home buying was so far. I mean, my mom never could dream, and here I am fulfilling the dream that she had for me or my dad had for me.
It's cool.
I love helping people out when they think that they're in an impossible situation, and I go, hey, you are it right now, but if you will walk with me and I will walk with you, I can show you how to be disciplined, and over the next 6 or 12 months we can put some money aside for down payment, we can get your credit in line. And I would love, let's look, not now, but how about in 12 months? If you stayed where you're at in 12 months, we could get you into a home.
Come on.
And this is what you can afford. Look, we could, based on your income, you're going to be and then you're going to get equity.
Yep.
Okay, right now you're paying rent. You get nothing out of this transaction. Now you're going to pay off equity. You have somewhere down the road that maybe if you live there for 30 years, you don't refi a bunch, you'll be able to pay it off. But at the very least, I said a lot of people don't even understand the appreciation of a home and how much give back that does. And it becomes also a safety purse for a lot of people.
Sure.
You get in a crunch, where do most people go? One of the first places they go to, their home equity.
Of course.
When you have an apartment, where do you go? You got nowhere, mom, dad. And if they're not around, they don't got money to loan you, you're in trouble.
That's right.
So, and you explain these things to them and they're like, oh, in 5 years, you're going to have $20,000 in equity. Yeah. And if you need to tap into 5 to get yourself out of a bind because you lost a job and you need to get by for 6 months, let's get that home equity. Don't borrow unless you need to. It's your emergency. And then let's work on a discipline of making an emergency fund, and you get to walk with these people. Have you ever thought about investing for your future? Well, my mom and dad never did that. Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get that. What if something happens to you? How about that little bit of life insurance? Let's get you involved with some people who can handle those life insurance and investment opportunities, even if you start small.
And you're not just helping them. You're helping them in their immediate situation, right? By helping them get financially independent, helping them get disciplined, go down a more profitable road. But more importantly, what are you doing for their legacy? Because then they're going to pass that down to their kids and then their kids to the next generation, 3 generations now. You don't know that you're diverting somebody from a way of thinking that they've been ingrained, that they were taught for generations, and you're making just a small tweak down that path that they're going to be able to pass down to their kids now. And that's what it's all about.
And I find joy in it, just like you do with the police officer doing.
That's cool.
At the end of the day, you're serving people, and the fact that I get to make a living doing it is great.
Yeah.
Hey, that's really, really cool that I can pay my bills. But
Awesome.
I love serving people, and it's a way to serve people. That's I think that finding those type of things are important for people to find importance, and I look back, you talked about your dad, and I look back at my dad. My dad did better than his mom. My grandmother ran away from an Indian reservation. My dad, did ROTC to get a 2-year computer, trade school degree. Eventually we go back to college and get a college degree, but I was actually almost towards the end of his career. But then me and all my sisters were able to go to college and, cool. Experience. And even if we hadn't, we'd had opportunities he did not have. Was I think the key, because I don't think it's always about college. I think we can agree on today's college is even different than when I was growing up. But, at the end of the day, whether it be, like my next door neighbor becoming a plumber, that was an opportunity he was able to have because his mom and dad were able to. All these things are opportunities that we can give our kids to find the things that they love to do them well, that maybe weren't afforded to them earlier because they would just be forced to work at the mill, right?
Right.
You grew up in a small town. You don't leave the small town. This is your job because nobody can afford to get out of this town.
Right. You want to work in the mill, it has to be your choice. You invest, right? I think that's awesome. But that's the beauty of our country. If that's not where you're called to be, you don't have to stay there. The land of opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
What is God calling me to be? And you find it out and you go and chase it.
Yeah, find your God-given gift.
Yes.
When God gives you gifts, when you can meet that gift with a passion and do it unto Him, you'll be happy no matter what.
That's exactly right.
The outcome, and you will always make money. Okay, artists who can take a gift, if you're truly gifted in it and got a passion for it, and you match those up, whether it be music, whether it be art, there's ways to make money in everything.
Yes.
You'll find a way.
Sure.
Yes.
And, it's not, we talk about you'll be happy, you'll be fulfilled. All those things are true. But ultimately, what is it about? We know, being biblically minded Christ followers, we have a responsibility to use the talents and gifts that were given to us freely. What do we use? Are we using them for ourselves? If you were a talented baseball player, did you use that to enrich yourself and to live a nice life? Or did you use it for something more? Did you use it to be a voice, right? To use it as a platform. We see that. Of course. What am I going to use? I have a name. I have a voice. What am I going to use it for? Because it's not just the fulfillment and the happiness is a byproduct. It is a wonderful thing that we get to enjoy. But ultimately, what are we doing with what is given to us in the time that we have?
Absolutely.
And that's what motivates me even now.
So we move past Ferguson. I'm going to keep moving. It's a little down the road. All right, so we're back. What we're going to do, because we were just saying the time's kind of gone by, we're going to have to get you back here. Cool. So we're getting to more legislator stuff, but let's finish up at least your cops time. Is there anything after Ferguson to running for legislator that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so this would probably be helpful. I'll clean it up by finish. How did I go from being in the police world to becoming elected? And then that's a whole nother
Yeah, and then we'll get into the Jeff City and all that. We'll bring you back and get into life into Jeff City and the bills you like and don't like and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So obviously Ferguson is a defining moment, and it's a defining moment in me personally, but also, professionally. But while I was in police work, I knew that I was fulfilling a calling, so I had peace. You know what that feels like. You're driven, you're motivated, you're passionate. But in my soul, there was always something that I felt that I was going to do outside of police work. I was going to do something more and more direct. And I would talk to Mandy and I would talk about this, and I would say, because different opportunities would come, maybe a federal position or to go do this or do that, or in the private sector would come. And I would fast and I would pray. That was always my go-to, fast and pray. And I would be led by, do I have a peace or no peace? Meaning, am I going to do this? No, I'm not going to do this. I don't have a peace about this. The Lord would give me a peace about staying in the police world. And so I would say, great, awesome. And then it would go, right? And a year or two would pass until I had been at the police department for almost 15 years. But eventually, that's exactly how it worked, was always feeling that maybe I was going to do something different, and never wanting to run for office, because all you have to do is look up how much legislators make, and you're like, I'm never going to do that, because you don't.
Yeah, they're not the Missouri ones. I mean, we're not talking federal ones, right? So
you don't make any money. Yeah, you don't make any money, and it's technically a part-time job, and I've never done more work for a part-time job than this job, because it is incredibly busy, incredibly labor intensive. You're traveling everywhere. You have to live down in Jefferson City for part of the year. You're separated from your family. It is a burden. It is a life of sacrifice, and to immerse yourself into that environment is very difficult and not pleasant. But the reason I say that is I never intended on running for office, but one day I woke up and I don't even know how to properly describe the story, how this works, because it sounds made up. But I woke up one day and felt very clearly, I mean as clearly as you and I are speaking, I'm going to run for office. And I shocked myself when I was like, wait a minute, that didn't come from me. Like, I didn't say that to myself, but I heard it. You're going to run for office. And I was like, what am I going to do? I promise. I told Mandy, I said, Mandy, I'm going to run for office. And she's like, what? Yeah, I'm like, I mean, governor's the only thing that makes about what I'm making right now. I guess I'm going to run for that. I mean, we're laughingly, like you think about how this sounds insane. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, I really feel, I know this sounds crazy. But when God says that you're going to do something, just like I had learned over the course of my life to be sensitive to His Holy Spirit and to be obedient, if He says I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And so I said, I don't know. I just know that I'm supposed to run. She said, really? Like, what? Pray about it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pray about it. And it wouldn't go away. And typically, if it's from me, if it's just a Justin thing, it'll disappear and float away, But it wouldn't. It would not go away. And I said, okay, honey, I don't know what to do about this, but I'm supposed to run for office. I'm just looking and I'm looking at the positions and what I could run for, what I should run for. And I'm like, they don't make any money. How would I do this? I'm in the middle of my career. I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm making both federal money as a deputized U.S. Marshal, and I'm making money through the St. Louis County Police Department. And I have what every policeman dreams of. I have literally the dream job as a police officer. Everything you could possibly think. I have the sweetest gig. And you would be a fool to leave. Not only that, but if you leave police work before you get your, what we call 80 points or your time served.
For pension, yeah.
You don't get your pension, right? You get a drastically reduced pension, which you can't even get until you're in your 50s. So like no money. I just have to walk away from it, right? And it just makes absolutely no sense in the natural. It's just absolutely stupid. and yet it wouldn't go away. And so I told like 6 people, not even, that I was thinking about doing this, that I was going to do this. And I says, Mandy, we're going to take one step forward, and we're going to let him open doors that no man can shut, or shut doors no man can open, but this will not go away. So we got together with our family at our family event, and I told my family what I was going to do. And I'm going to run for office. And they were supportive, but they were just like, what the heck? That makes absolutely no sense. And I'm like, I know what this sounds like, but trust me, I know. I've already gone through this. I've tried to make this go away. It will not go away. I am just telling you, this is what I'm going to do. I'm taking a step of faith here. I'm taking one step forward. And if it's God, he's going to open these doors and he's going to lead me and guide me just as he always has in my life. And nothing happened. For 6 months, nothing happened.
That's hilarious.
And I thought, well, I didn't really care because I was like, I was in such a great job. I was in my career that I had already been called to. And I was like, I guess it was just me. I guess I'm just an idiot, and God's not leading me in a different direction. And then that 6 months goes by, and out of the blue, one of those original 6 people that I had told about running for office calls me and says, there's been a representative. He has already won his primary, so now he's ready for his general election, but he's going to drop out to become the chief of staff for a senator. Would you be interested in filling his spot? And I was like, for the House of Representatives? And he said, yes. And I said, well, I'm going to have to pray about it. And he's like, well, you have less than 24 hours. We have to know right away.
I love it. Yeah.
And he was from the Fraternal Order of Police. So he was a policeman that I had worked with, and now he works with the FOP, and they wanted to have a candidate that they felt comfortable and strong and was a conservative and that would, advocate for police issues. And so I prayed about it, and I decided I wasn't going to do it. I was like, I'm not going to be, the Lord said I'm going to run for office, but it certainly can't be this because they don't make any money. So I'm not going to be distracted by this. I know that I'm just going to stay focused on running for office, just not this office because it doesn't make any money. Because I wish I could tell you I had all the faith. I was this giant in the faith and that I could do it and the mountains would move. And I was absolutely not. I was thinking about putting food on the table and being uncomfortable when the bills aren't paid. Okay? That's what I was thinking.
Absolutely.
And
because you got 6 kids. We already talked about that.
Exactly right. So I decided against it. And I told Mandy, she said, okay, because she was being supportive no matter what, because she's amazing. And I tried picking up the phone and calling him back to tell him that I wasn't going to do it. I couldn't make the call. I put the phone down. And I thought about it again. And I said, I'm not going to do it. So I pick up the phone. I tried to make the phone a second time. I tried to call and say, I'm not going to do it. And I couldn't do it. I physically couldn't do it. Like I couldn't dial the darn number. And I thought, what in the world is going on? Like my mind knew what I was going to do, but it wasn't obeying. And then I stopped. I know to stop trying, right? And I called Mandy and I said, I have tried to call and tell him no, and I can't do it. It's just bizarre. And I said, oh, I'm going to do it. As soon as I said it, I had a complete peace. I knew that was the right call. And she said, yep, I think that's exactly what you're supposed to do. And I said, oh my gosh, I think that this is exactly what the Lord was providing, that this is it. But you don't make any money. That's what I'm thinking. Like, but you don't make any money. She's like, it doesn't matter. He'll provide. He will be there for you. If he's calling you to do something like this, well, it'll come some other way.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this. And as soon as I said it, I had a complete peace. She wasn't worried about the bills or the money or anything else. And neither was I. I immediately called and said, I'm going to do it. I immediately called. And that set off a series of events that I can only, the only way I can explain it to you is it probably doesn't happen very often in your life, in which everything falls into place. And I mean, everything falls into place. And everything with the election, everything with volunteers, everything with money, everything with getting elected immediately fell into place.
But you don't make a whole lot of money.
I mean, you make no money. Yeah. And yet, my bills are always paid, and I'm always provided for above and beyond what I need or ask for. And when I say it's miraculous, it's miraculous. And yet, you get down to transitioning from police work into this life, into this world, and you're like, God definitely made a mistake because this is ridiculously terrible. But when you're called to do it, just like being in that toxic environment of police work, you're there for a reason. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And so you have a comfort and a fulfillment knowing, wow, this is way worse than I anticipated. The world of the political world. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I know that I'm there for a reason and a purpose. And so I have comfort and peace.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. We'll land it there. I think that's a great place to land it. Comfort and peace, heading towards Jefferson City, and we'll get more the next time we get you back on here shortly, because I'm curious to learn more and hear about Jefferson City. We've learned a little bit from our past episodes with Jody and Jay and a few of these other cats, but it'll be interesting to hear from a real insider some of this stuff. So looking forward to that. Support. If people want to support you, do you got a website?
Yes, sparksformissouri.com. They can go on and support. I of course, very much appreciate that. And I'm on Twitter, Justin M. Sparks, and Sparks for Missouri on the social media.
Send me the link for your website, and I'll make sure we put that in the show notes so people can click on that and give, and if they feel led to. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. And so we appreciate you guys listening in. Obviously, we got a lot done today. We got through your police career at least somewhat, right?
Yes.
So we got a lot more to go though. So we can't have a great story can't be all one chapter, right?
Right.
So all right, and so we'll have them back. But in the meantime, thank you for checking out Triple Play. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share to your friends, let them know. If you're in the Justin's district, make sure you vote for him when the time comes up. And if you guys have questions, reach out to him because I know he's active in the district and wants to support the community and help people out. So we've had those discussions prior to the episode. So what a great guy to have who loves the Lord and is obedient to the Lord, and even when it's inconvenient, right? So for David, it was chasing down a giant, and for Justin, it was running for state senator, right? Or state house. So yeah, representative. So anyways, with that said, we'll catch you next episode. God bless.
You're safe.